Hi traders, I just want to introduce this weekend's review with a look at the indicators. But before I do that, let's just talk about the data, because at the moment we've still got the US shutdown. So we've got very, very little data for the US scheduled at the moment, unless that shutdown is resolved, or partial shutdown. So on Monday we've even got the US on holiday, so we've got very, very little data on Monday. We've got a lot of UK data coming up. Tuesday is inflation, Wednesday is jobs, and Thursday is UK retail sales. In the meantime, the only the only key data that's scheduled for the US is the beige book on Wednesday, which is an indication of possible interest rate movements in the US, and then China's GDP on Friday. So with that in mind, all my eyes are firmly fixed on the pound US and the pound yen. Very interested in what the pound Aussie dollar can do as well. What I've got in front of you at the moment is the Nikkei. You can see on the weekly chart we have engulfed last week's price action. Now a very, very swift move into that 61.8% figure. So where are we going to go from here? Well, I would imagine with a move like that, we might see a pullback at some stage to that 14,270, which is the 8 EMA and the monthly pivot, and then start reaching out for these kind of highs up here. Okay, so this is a 1, 2, and a third wave. Looks as if we're coming up here. So if that's the case, we need to obviously break that resistance, these highs up here. Otherwise, if we can't break that high, if we come into that trend line there up here at these the highs of a few weeks ago, we could roll over. We are getting high RSI. I'm above the midline. Stochastics is crossing to the downside here. So it's all to prove. If we fail at this, if Monday we can't close above, or certainly the first part of the week, Monday, Tuesday can't close above 14,500, and this could still roll over. But it's a good week, let's just face facts. It's a good week, it's a very positive bar, and that looks as if that could move further. Into the daily chart, and that's a very positive move. Very clean bump off the bottom. So let's now look at the euro before we look at the Dow. I think if there's confidence in the market, and I think that should show through in the euro. Now that is under the daily 8. I'm nervous about charts. I'm about to say I don't like charts that don't close above the 8. Well, I'm certainly nervous about this. This is major resistance up here from Feb this year, which we haven't come in contact with, which is pinpointed by this monthly R1. And we had this lovely move off the 200. Once we got up here, we didn't close above the 8 until Wednesday of last week, when we shot down to this support. So since Wednesday, we've not closed above the 8. After all this action above the daily 8, now we're below the daily 8. So if we break that low on Monday, I can see that at least coming back to 134, at least, if not, start to wind our way further down. Now, typically into this time of the year, I would expect to see some dollar strength, but with the shutdown, it's distorting the picture a little. For the bulls, we have closed. We come down to the support, 135, massive wall there, and we've closed up for 2 days running. So that area there, I'm going to box that area there, and whichever way we come out of that box is the direction for potentially for the rest of the week. But with 2 days of buying, we look as if we're just nicking the 8. So this could get bought, and then we could just run up there, but not an obvious setup. But with the bullishness in the Nikkei, the Dow, and coming off that 135, I would have to stay bullish at this stage. And if you're trading Monday, I will take a look Monday afternoon, but I will not get engaged in this market unless I'm very happy about what I'm seeing. 135 is the big number. Okay, Dow came off this massive support area there and the monthly S1, which just closed above the monthly pivot with a move above all of these moving averages. So a massive 3-day bounce. So this is excuse me. So is this a huge dead cat bounce or is this a return to trend? At the moment, I think with a move like this, you have to say this is a very bullish move. There's huge two days of buying, busting through all sorts of areas of resistance. If we look at the weekly charts, this weekly is very bullish. So I would be very interested in a retest of that weekly star. Stars are often retested. You'll hear me say that in the room a lot. So that's a possible pullback area. This 15,150 or the 200 level. Somewhere between 150, 180, 200 is the pullback area. So I will mark that now. I will even put that with an alert. I'm interested in that. Yeah, that 190 is interesting. Oops. That's Sunday's open last week. Okay, so if the euro holds 135 and doesn't, then we could see a move back up. If it breaks Friday's low, I will get short. If we can see the Dow holding this area here, or possibly even as low as 150, then I would buy all on the back of the holding of the euro and the big moves up in the Nikkei and the Dow. So where does that leave us with the pound? With all that data coming up. The pound, we've got two hammers there sitting on the monthly pivot. So if we break 160 and can hold above 160, then we can go back at least to 161.23. At which point, that has massive resistance up there. I would look for any short signals up there. I would, if we break this high, I would get long and stay long. But if we ever falter at that area there, I would look to get short. See, they've got a reversal bar up there. Let me make a little note of that reversal bar up there as well. Again, for the bears, if we just break Friday's support, we just break the support here, we're going to start retesting the 50 EMA, which I think we are overdue a retest. Come up and then start retesting the monthly S1 and start retesting this 136. So there's a massive trend line down here. If you look at the weeklies, you can see we've got this huge resistance up here at 162.50. 2 weeks of low closes. We're holding this 200 EMA. The dotted line on my chart's always at 200. And the 8 is coming up. That's very bullish. I like the way the 8 is coming up and bending up to meet it. One drop to 158, 15, and possibly even lower could trigger the next move up back into 164, which is the 2013 high up here. Okay, so I would look for any pullbacks this area here. I mean, like I said, if we break that Friday low, massive support there at 159.20. Break that, and that's significant. That is very significant. So not an easy chart. Again, we've been below the 8 pretty much all week, with the exception of the 8th. We were just about clinging on the 8th. So we've been below the 8 most of the week. So tough call. That's about a 200-point range in there all week, so it's not a very good chart. However, the better chart to trade is this, the pound yen. This pound yen had a fantastic week. The bullishness in the Nikkei, seeing weakness in the yen. Yen pairs generally need bull markets, otherwise you get a run for cover on these yen pairs. So this 15660 is huge. You can see from here on the May 2013 highs. So the fact, when we bounced up here before, we retested this and ran into 159.40. So this is going to be the wall this week. We hold on, we'll come back and retest 156.60 area and hold, or possibly even right back down to this trend line here. But then we could see a move back into these resistance areas and possibly even a breakout. Now this one has come back, tested the 50 EMA and closed above next day. So this is a very powerful signal here. So a pullback to these levels is to be bought. Quick look at some of the other charts, but to be honest, I'm not that interested in the other charts at all. Aussie has been grinding higher, but we've got a massive amount of resistance up there at 95. We have got these two moving averages closing together, so I would be very interested in that pullback to that low. I'll be very interested in pullback to that area there, 92.50 if we see it. But in the meantime, we are holding. It's a close above. We closed for a high of the week. On the high, the highest close of the week was Friday. So I'm mixing my words a bit here. So it is holding up. So we may not be lucky to may even only get a pullback to the 8. We've been holding the 8 ever since the 1st of October. We've been holding the 8 all a month. So that one is bullish. Again on the weekly. On the weekly, this is looking as if it wants to test 97. And we've got massive resistance up there at 96. You can see with its fibs on this weekly, this 95 is huge, and we got the resistance of 96, and we got a resistance of 97. So this is why it's slow, but you've got to give it credit for having a decent move off of 88 and continues to grind higher. CAD Swissy had a nice move. I talked about the CAD pairs this time last week, and moved sideways for a while, but that is a good move out. So that's a pullback at around about 87.70, 87.50. But look at this resistance, massive trendline resistance just above. So that's why I won't be trading it. But Aussie CAD. Ooh, hammer Starlight Bar off the daily 200. But that is a pull. That's a buy around the 96 area, possibly 96 area. I don't like charts that are squeezed between the moving averages, and that is definitely sandwiched there. I'll have a look at the FTSE, so let's just dash the FTSE a second. Looks very, very, that's almost a carbon copy of the Dow. Only in this case, we didn't come off a monthly pivot, we came off a fib level. But look at that resistance above. We crash into that resistance and roll over, that FTSE is in trouble. We have got 150 crossing though, so it is strong, Let's not get away from the fact. Stay away from the noise of the news and just trade what you see. Now this is a pound Aussie dollar. This area here, 167.80, is huge. So I will be a buyer if we can close above 169. That has got a massive trend line there, but I'm looking at this as a wedge. Here's the baseline of the wedge. Here's the trend line coming across the top. We buffed out of that and we could see 175 plus. This has been a very bullish chart over the last couple of years. So we have had a big wave up here. We had a pullback to the 50. We ran up, we had a pullback to support, broke resistance, found support. We keep moving, so far pullback to ball. So 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. Yeah, if you in any way follow, that's wave 1, that's wave 2, that's wave 3. This is an A, B, C wave correction. The D wave is generally the powerful one. So we come up to this and crack through that, and that Aussie pound is going places. Look at on the weekly. So we're just testing the 100 EMA there on the daily. 2 weeks of selling, okay. So that's suggesting that 166 is the weekly 200. We did get some way away from the weekly move there. Let me just put the fibs on that. Yeah, I think this area here is huge. This 167 area here, which should see the 200 EMA on the weekly moving up. So I'd be very, very tuned into that and see where that leads us. Okay, I'm just going to flip over and talk about stocks now. Let's just talk about oil before we go. I did scrape a small run out of oil on Friday and left it. On the weekly chart, you can see got huge support down here at 98.70. We just narrowly closed. We engulfed last week's price action, so I would expect to see possibly 97.75 there. So typically, we would get very weak this time of year. Let's see. This is September 2012. So from September 2012, we came from 99.25 right down to 85. And last year, well, it was last year, wasn't it? Yeah, so I would expect to see this at least retest 98.74. Alright, I'm going to switch over to stocks now, and just a message about the trading room. In fact, I'll email you details about the trading room and update you on that in that way. Alright, thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.